Welcome to NVL Travel Documentary. When you think of the United States, what comes to mind? Skyscrapers, Hollywood, the American dream. But behind the glamour lies a hidden reality, one most tourists never see.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Welcome to the darker side of America. From tent cities under Vegas lights to the frozen streets of Anchorage, this is not your typical travel documentary. It's a journey into rising homelessness, addiction, and urban decay. Why are thousands sleeping on sidewalks in the richest country on earth? What turns a dreamer into a drifter, or a veteran into a criminal? In this episode of NVL Travel Documentary, we uncover the raw, unfiltered truth, facts about countries that no brochure dares to print. Stay with us. What you discover may change the way you see America forever. Number 1. The American dream is cracking when the land of opportunity leaves you. Homelessness in New York remains one of the most pressing social issues today. As of August 2024, the total number of homeless individuals across the state has surpassed 350,000 people. Every single night, around 132,000 people find temporary refuge in shelters, but many more, numbering in the thousands, are sleeping on sidewalks, in subway stations, or crashing with friends just to stay off the streets. Over the past 2 decades, the homeless population has surged by an alarming 175%, a dramatic rise that speaks volumes. During the COVID-19 pandemic, emergency measures like eviction bans and rental assistance programs provide a lifeline. These policies helped reduce the homeless count by about 25%. However, once those safety nets were lifted, the numbers began climbing again, revealing just how fragile the system really is without long-term solutions. What's perhaps even more heartbreaking is that 71% of those in shelters are families. That includes approximately 46,000 kids who should be focusing on school, play, and building dreams, not worrying about where they'll sleep tonight. These statistics aren't just sobering, they're a call to action. If we want to truly address this crisis, we need more than temporary fixes. We need sustained, compassionate policies and real investment in housing, mental health, and community support. Because behind every number is a name, a story, and a future worth fighting for. Number 2, 10 states, 10 struggles, a nation's homeless crisis unfolding coast to coast. Let's talk about Alaska, the land of breathtaking wilderness, now facing a silent crisis. Once known for its natural beauty and resource-driven economy, Alaska is now grappling with shrinking communities and rising homelessness. As of early 2025, the state has seen a noticeable drop in population, largely due to a lack of jobs and a soaring cost of living that most residents simply can't keep up with. Alaska's economy has long relied on oil and commercial fishing, but here's the hard truth. Both industries have been on the decline. Oil production has dropped by over 20% in the past decade, and fish stocks are becoming less predictable due to climate change and overfishing. With limited opportunities, especially outside major cities, many people are leaving the state in search of stability. Meanwhile, homelessness is becoming more visible and more dangerous. In Anchorage alone, Alaska's largest city, over 1,000 people are currently experiencing homelessness. And we're not talking about mild winters here. We're talking sub-zero temperatures, snowstorms, and months of darkness. Surviving on the streets in these conditions is not just hard, it's life-threatening. What makes things even tougher is Alaska's isolation. Unlike other states, getting supplies, aid, or even basic support services into remote communities is incredibly challenging. Many areas don't have year-round road access, and flights are expensive and infrequent. That means even when help is available, it doesn't always reach the people who need it most. So while Alaska might seem remote and untouched, it's facing real, urgent problems. Economic decline, limited infrastructure, and brutal weather conditions have created a perfect storm for a humanitarian crisis. If we want to make a difference, we have to look past the postcard scenery and face the hard realities many Alaskans live with every day. A city once full of industry and promise, now struggling to hold itself together. Known for its rich history and iconic harbor, Baltimore today faces deep-rooted economic and social challenges. As of early 2025, about 26.2% of its population lives below the poverty line. That's more than 1 in every 4 residents fighting just to survive. The root causes run deep. Decades of disinvestment, job losses, and a declining manufacturing base have left entire neighborhoods with few opportunities. Unemployment rates remain high, and access to quality education is limited. Many public schools are underfunded, leaving young people with few tools to break the cycle of poverty. Housing is another major issue, for thousands of buildings either abandoned or barely livable. Finding safe and affordable shelter is a daily struggle. On top of that, Baltimore consistently ranks among the cities with the highest crime rates in the country. Gun violence, theft, and drug crimes continue to plague communities, and with limited access to mental health care, job training, or substance abuse programs, the chances of escaping poverty or homelessness are heartbreakingly slim for many. These conditions have fueled a homelessness crisis that puts Baltimore among the worst in the nation. Shelters are overwhelmed, and more people are forced to sleep on sidewalks, in parks, or in cars. Families, veterans, and even teens are being left behind by a system that simply can't keep up with the need. But this isn't just a story of struggle, it's also a call for attention and action. Baltimore doesn't need quick fixes, it needs real, lasting investment in schools, in housing, in jobs, and in the people who still believe in their city. Because beneath the statistics are thousands of human stories, full of resilience, hope, and a deep desire for change. Hawaii, often pictured as paradise with golden beaches and swaying palm trees, is now facing a harsh reality that many tourists never see. Behind the stunning sunsets lies a growing crisis that makes this island state one of the hardest places to live for everyday people. As of early 2025, Hawaii has the highest cost of living and rental prices in the entire United States. Groceries, gas, and basic services all come at a premium. However, it's nearly impossible to afford for most local residents. Here's the truth: wages in Hawaii simply don't match the cost of living. Even full-time workers, especially those in the service and hospitality industries, struggle to make ends meet. A person working minimum wage would need to hold down multiple jobs just to cover rent, let alone food, healthcare, or transportation. For low-income families, the gap between income and basic needs keeps getting wider. This economic squeeze has led to a heartbreaking statistic. Hawaii has the highest rate of homelessness per capita in the entire country. Thousands of people, including working families and kupunas, elders, are living in shelters, tents, or even cars. In a place known for its beauty, many are simply fighting to survive another day. What makes it worse is that the booming tourism industry, which brings in billions of dollars each year, rarely benefits the local population. Hotels thrive, luxury condos keep going up, and visitors spend freely, but native Hawaiians and longtime residents are being priced out of their own communities. Many are forced to move to the mainland just to find a stable, affordable life. Hawaii's homelessness crisis isn't just about money. It's about inequality, displacement, and the slow erosion of a culture that once valued community and ohana, family. If we want to preserve the soul of these islands, we have to start putting people first, not profits. Pennsylvania, once the heart of America's industrial engine, is still grappling with the aftermath of a manufacturing collapse that changed everything. Cities like Pittsburgh were built on steel, powering the nation's growth through much of the 20th century. But when the steel industry crumbled in the 1980s, it left behind empty factories, lost jobs, and communities struggling to find a new identity. To be fair, there have been efforts to reinvent. Pittsburgh has leaned into tech and healthcare, trying to brand itself as a city of innovation. But the truth is, not everyone has been able to keep up. Many former steelworkers and their families lack access to the training or education needed to break into these new industries. That's left thousands behind, especially in working-class neighborhoods where opportunity is still hard to find. And it's not just Pittsburgh. Cities like Philadelphia and Harrisburg are facing similar challenges. High unemployment, a shortage of affordable housing, and growing income inequality have all contributed to a sharp rise in homelessness. As of early 2025, Pennsylvania's homeless population is steadily increasing, with shelters in urban areas stretched to their limits. In Philadelphia alone, thousands of people are living on the streets or in temporary housing, often without access to health care or stable income. This isn't just an economic issue, it's deeply human. People who once built the backbone of America now find themselves pushed to the margins. The shift from steel to silicon hasn't included everyone, and the safety nets in place aren't strong enough to catch those falling through the cracks. Pennsylvania's story is a powerful reminder. Economic transitions need to lift all people, not just the privileged few. If the goal is true recovery, we must invest in job training, mental health support, and most of all, affordable housing. Because behind every boarded-up factory is a community still holding on, hoping for a second chance. Las Vegas, the city of lights, luck, and lavish entertainment, is also a place where dreams often fade into harsh reality. While the Las Vegas Strip dazzles with neon signs and billion-dollar casinos, just a few blocks away, thousands are struggling to survive. As of early 2025, more than 18,000 people in the Las Vegas area are experiencing homelessness, and that number keeps climbing. The city's economy is heavily dependent on tourism, hospitality, and entertainment. When COVID-19 hit, those industries collapsed almost overnight. Hotels shut down, shows went dark, and tens of thousands of workers, from housekeepers to blackjack dealers, lost their incomes. While tourism has slowly bounced back, many residents never fully recovered. Gig workers, part-time staff, and those without strong financial safety nets were hit the hardest. For those already living paycheck to paycheck, it only took one missed rent payment to end up on the street. Now, Las Vegas faces one of the fastest-growing homelessness crises in the country. Shelters are overflowing, and many people are living in makeshift camps under freeways or in the desert, where summer heat can soar above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The contrast is jarring. On one side, luxury resorts with gold-plated fountains and 24-hour buffets. On the other, families digging through trash for food, veterans sleeping in tents, and youth with nowhere to turn. It's a tale of two cities, existing side by side but worlds apart. Las Vegas might be a symbol of possibility for some, but for many locals, it has become a place where the odds are stacked against them. Solving this crisis will take more than flashy marketing and tourism dollars. It requires real investment in affordable housing, mental health services, and job training programs that support long-term stability, not just quick wins. Because behind the glitz, there's a growing call for help, one that can't be drowned out by slot machines or show lights. California, once known as the Golden State where dreams came true, is now the epicenter of one of the deepest homelessness crises in the country. Cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco shine with tech billionaires and Hollywood stars, but for hundreds of thousands of residents, the cost of simply having a roof over their heads has become impossible to bear. As of early 2025, Los Angeles County alone has over 66,000 people experiencing homelessness, the highest number in the United States. And that's not counting the thousands more living in overcrowded housing, cars, or couch surfing just to avoid the streets. The core of the problem? Sky-high housing prices. In places like San Francisco, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is more than $3,000 a month, far beyond the reach of teachers, nurses, and service workers. But it's not just about rent. California is facing a storm of intersecting issues: extreme income inequality, a massive shortage of affordable housing, and a social services system that can't keep up. For every luxury condo being built, there are countless families struggling to find a place they can afford. Mental health care and addiction treatment services are underfunded, and many people end up homeless simply because they have nowhere else to turn. What's more, California's economic boom has left many behind. While tech companies post record profits, many workers are juggling multiple jobs and still can't make ends meet. Even those with steady employment often find themselves priced out of their own neighborhoods. The homelessness crisis in California isn't just a big city problem, it's a statewide emergency. From beach towns to rural farming communities, the signs are clear: tents on sidewalks, RVs lining the streets, and shelters stretched far beyond capacity. If California wants to live up to its golden promise, it needs to focus less on image and more on impact, building affordable homes, expanding support services, and bridging the growing divide between rich and poor. Because right now, the American dream in California is slipping further out of reach for far too many. Oregon, once seen as a progressive model for urban living, is now struggling under the weight of a growing homelessness crisis that's hard to ignore. In Portland, a city once praised for its walkability, artsy vibe, and forward-thinking culture, tents now line sidewalks, parks, and highway overpasses. What was once a symbol of innovation has become a battleground between idealism and harsh reality. As of early 2025, Oregon ranks among the top states for homelessness per capita. Portland alone has seen a dramatic surge, with thousands living unsheltered. Rising rental costs are one of the biggest culprits. In the past 5 years, average rent in Portland has jumped by over 30%, outpacing wages, especially for workers in retail, food service, and other low-paying jobs. But housing costs are just part of the story. Oregon's mental health and addiction services, though well-intentioned, are underfunded and overwhelmed. Many individuals on the streets are struggling with untreated mental health conditions or substance use disorders, and there simply aren't enough clinics or professionals to meet the need. At the same time, access to stable, low-barrier employment remains limited, especially for those with gaps in their work history or criminal records. The state has made efforts to tackle the crisis, launching housing initiatives, investing in shelter capacity, and passing tenant protections. But for many residents, change has been too slow. Policy disagreements, funding shortfalls, and public frustration have made it difficult to create lasting solutions. There's a deep tension in Oregon, the desire to protect human rights and dignity while facing the everyday realities of public safety, sanitation, and community disruption. And as encampments grow, so do divisions, not just between housed and unhoused people, but also among leaders, neighbors, and advocates. Still, the path forward is not hopeless. Oregon has the values, the public will, and the creative spirit to lead again, but only if it backs those ideals with real investment in housing, mental health care. New York, long seen as a symbol of ambition and opportunity, is now grappling with a deepening homelessness and affordability crisis. As of early 2025, more than 60,000 people in New York City are homeless, living in shelters, subways, or on the streets, a staggering number in one of the wealthiest cities on Earth. But the crisis extends beyond the city. Upstate New York, once filled with thriving towns powered by factories and small businesses, is now facing economic decay. Jobs are scarce, populations are shrinking, and young people are leaving in search of better opportunities. These communities aren't struggling with high rent, they're struggling with a lack of hope. Meanwhile, in New York City, skyrocketing living costs are pushing working-class families to the edge. The average rent for a one-bedroom in Manhattan exceeds $4,000 per month, while wages lag far behind. For many, even a full-time job isn't enough to cover basic needs like housing, food, and healthcare. One unexpected expense can mean eviction and a slide into homelessness that's hard to reverse. The contrast between wealth and poverty is stark. Wall Street thrives, luxury condos rise, yet thousands of residents live paycheck to paycheck, stuck in long wait lists for affordable housing and lacking access to mental health care or job support. New York has always been a place of extremes, but if it wants to remain a land of opportunity, it must invest in all its people. That means expanding affordable housing, revitalizing rural economies, and ensuring no one is left behind in the shadow of prosperity. Michigan, especially the city of Detroit, tells a powerful story of industrial glory turned into economic despair. Once the beating heart of America's auto industry, Detroit symbolized innovation and middle-class stability. But the closure of major factories in the late 20th century triggered a rapid decline that still haunts the city today. As of early 2025, unemployment remains alarmingly high in many neighborhoods. Entire blocks of homes stand abandoned, while schools, hospitals, and public services struggle to meet even the basic needs of residents. Over 60% of the population has left since the city's peak, and those who remain are often trapped in poverty with little access to job training or upward mobility. Although some downtown areas have seen investment and revitalization, the benefits haven't reached the city's most vulnerable communities. Many residents continue to face housing insecurity, lack of clean water, and limited economic opportunity. Outside Detroit, cities like Flint and Saginaw are experiencing similar hardships, from stagnant local economies to crumbling infrastructure. Detroit's story is more than just one city's downfall. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when industries collapse and there are no long-term plans for recovery. Real change will require serious, sustained commitment to education, healthcare, housing, and jobs to ensure that the people who stayed behind are not left behind. Arizona, known for its stunning deserts and booming cities, is now facing a housing and homelessness crisis that's worsening by the year. In Phoenix, one of the fastest-growing cities in the U.S., the cost of living has soared. Over the past decade, average rent has nearly doubled, while wages in sectors like retail and hospitality have remained largely stagnant. For many working-class residents, even full-time jobs are no longer enough to afford stable housing. As a result, thousands have been pushed out of their homes and onto the streets. Tent encampments now stretch along highways and sidewalks, with people forced to endure scorching summer temperatures that regularly exceed 100 degrees. The situation is made worse by a lack of support systems. Arizona has long struggled with underfunded mental health care, limited access to affordable health care, and insufficient shelters or transitional housing. For many, losing a home is just the start of a downward spiral, with no safety net to stop the fall. Local leaders have taken steps to expanding shelter capacity and proposing more affordable housing, but these efforts lag behind the growing need. Without stronger renter protections, better wages, and serious investment in public health and housing infrastructure, the crisis is likely to deepen. Arizona's story is one of contrasts: rapid development and wealth on one side, desperation and displacement on the other. Addressing this imbalance requires more than temporary fixes. It demands bold leadership, comprehensive policy, and above all, empathy for those struggling to survive. Number 3, this is no longer local. Homelessness is a national emergency. What we've seen across these 10 states isn't just a collection of local issues, it's a national emergency. From the frozen streets of Anchorage to the desert heat of Phoenix, one truth keeps showing up. Homelessness, poverty, and economic struggle are no longer isolated problems. They're everywhere, and they're growing. This isn't just about bad luck or a few people falling through the cracks. It's about a broken system, one that's failing millions of Americans. Whether it's families priced out of housing in California, workers left behind in Michigan, or veterans sleeping rough in New York, the signs all point to one thing: the need for real, nationwide reform. We can't fix this with band-aids. What we need is bold, system-wide change, starting with affordable housing. Every person deserves a safe, stable place to live. That means investing in low-income housing, offering rent support, and building homes that working people can actually afford. We also need strong, targeted policies to support the homeless. Not just emergency shelters, but long-term solutions like transitional housing, job placement programs, and legal protections for renters. Because getting someone off the street is just the first step. Helping them stay housed is what truly matters. And we can't talk about homelessness without talking about healthcare and mental health. Far too many people on the streets are battling trauma, addiction, or untreated illnesses. Without access to proper care, they're stuck in a cycle they can't escape. Finally, we need to invest in job training and meaningful employment, especially in areas where old industries have collapsed. People want to work, they want dignity, purpose, and a way forward. But that only happens when we create real pathways, not just promises. The good news? We already have the resources and knowledge to turn this around. What we need now is the political will and the empathy to act like every person matters. Because this isn't just their problem, it's our problem. And solving it will make the entire country stronger, safer, and more human. What we've uncovered in this journey isn't just a story about cities or statistics. It's a portrait of a nation at a crossroads. From the icy roads of Alaska to the neon shadows of Las Vegas, from forgotten towns in Michigan to the golden coasts of California, one message is clear: the American dream is becoming harder to reach for millions. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness, about asking better questions. What kind of future do we want to build, and who gets to be part of it? Because behind every tent, every empty factory, and every shelter bed, there's a human being. Someone's parent, child, neighbor, or friend. And their stories deserve to be heard. If this video moved you or opened your eyes to a different side of America, consider giving it a like, leaving a comment with your thoughts, or subscribing for more eye-opening journeys from around the world. Here at NVL Travel Documentary, we don't just explore beautiful places, we uncover the truths that travel brochures leave out. Thank you for watching, and remember, the world is full of stories. Some are hard to hear, but all of them matter.